Hello, universe. Welcome to Pickathon Podcast, episode 23, with your host, Zale Schoenborn. That's me. I am the founder of the Pickathon Music Festival, and this is a podcast about creative journeys, discovery, just things in the universe that are interesting, musically, culturally, art. And today my guest is a really special guest, Nikki Nair, the amazing electronic artist who I feel like life and our journeys, line up quite a bit between Nikki and myself and Pickathon. And kind of, when I think about the music that Nikki Nair does, which is, a style of music that is experimental, like, taking risks, breaking down barriers, trying new things. That really explains a lot about myself here too. And my take on the universe is taking risks and breaking down barriers, trying new things is like how actually culture and art is supposed to be. If you don't make people think, if you don't have something that is thoughtful or kind of pushes it, it can be it can be comforting, but it's hardly usually art unless it really kind of changes the narrative a bit. And when art is, at its best, it's doing those things. And I kind of think there's lots of things that come out of that. Like for us on the festival side, or music side, it's not just music. When you think about on a festival, like most festivals are kind of built around, and so a lot of music are built around a formula. Here is how you succeed. You do the big artists that draw all the attention, sell tickets. They have this much power, and then you create an event and you spend as little money as possible trying to make that possible. And then on the music side, that kind of same theory is like, there's the styles of music that sells tickets, and there's like whole machine factories and song factories. And kind of like if you feel yourself and you're kind of dedicating your life, you want it to be interesting, right? And so is it enough? Yeah, sometimes if it's a job and you really just don't care that much, maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you're not that attached to it, and the fun of the business side of it is really fun. I'm not judging that. In fact, I think a lot of people really are fans of those kind of styles of music that are popular, or festivals that really are just kind of, I hate to say industrialized or like factory, but the venue world, very sadly, across the country is a very small, owned by just a couple very large corporations, push most of the entire agenda and control the ecosystem, and have all kinds of advantages when it comes to like, if you're a small artist, you're going to come to the small venue and they're going to put you up to the large venue. They're going to do a 360 deal. The pipeline is just really kind of nuts. And so now what happens if you're taking chances and doing these, breaking down barriers and trying new things? Well, you're gonna suffer a bit in terms of until people really value that. And I think, whether that's, musically, like again, I'll just kind of relate it to our journey on the festival side. If you just stay in your lane, do a bluegrass festival, do an electronic festival, do a rock festival, you can probably succeed really quickly. When you want to mix those things, it's not done. People kind of reject it because they are visceral to one or the other. But what I think in reality, they're the larger middle of people, the people that are really open, and especially younger people, it doesn't matter to them like that, and when they see something they're not exposed to and they like it, they end up liking it, and it ends up causing kind of a ripple effect where more people, and before you know it, you actually are starting to change things. And I think you just have to have these convictions that that's actually a thing that is possible. and maybe it's just a selfish motivation that you're just like, I don't want to do it unless I'm feeling like I'm kind of adding something. And, from a point of view of like, for us, it goes well beyond just kind of like thinking music. We're thinking like we don't want to have a bunch of trash. So let's be sustainable. But it's not like you need to like, yeah, I mean, we do a bunch of things that nobody else does, but it's not hard. It's not complicated. We built the whole festival around nature because we just wanted to use like the land, and we're like, why not? That has like a cool idea. We always thought of like having kids would be a cool idea, and you shouldn't even notice them, but they should be able to come because it's like it's not a kid festival, but we have more kids activities on like a summer fest. And if they don't get exposed, if the teenagers don't get involved, if it's just for adults, then you're missing that kind of like. And then when you're in this art of kind of like breaking down barriers, taking risks, you'll probably have an idea to kind of infect pop culture somehow. Like you have this kind of secret agenda, and that's going to be a lot of, yes, older people and folks can be exposed to new things, but kids and teenagers are really kind of the thing that I think you really want to make sure are part of that crowd. And so just having it kind of in a festival for adults is like part of it. And then, dumb stuff like, but we just think it's important on the experience side. Like, why do we have too few people? Because our audience wants that, and because we think it kind of creates a more intimate, lasting, memorable vibe to have like not suck where you just can't breathe and you can get up close and you can, but it's dumb, it's like but it's important to us.
It's financially a bad idea. Yeah. But that in particular makes festival like, I will say publicly, I fully don't enjoy going to most music festivals. Like they're just, you feel like a cow and there's like, too many people and it's sweaty and it's like going to Disneyland or something. And it's like, I don't enjoy that at all.
And they're like festival, right? Like sometimes you can go to these festivals and by the way, we are now talking to my good friend, Nikki Nair. I mean, do you notice that? Like when you go to kind of like festivals, sometimes you don't even know wouldn't matter what city you're in, right? Like there's nothing, right. They're very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, especially like in the US. I mean, honestly, luckily, like I don't get booked for a lot of these kinds of festivals. I think sometimes my agent will like want me to go play at EDC or whatever, like horrible, like massive electro. I shouldn't say publicly it's horrible, but sorry, okay. Like it's horrible. Yeah. But yeah, whatever, play at those like massive festivals where the lineups are basically the same. They have some big EDM DJ or like maybe jam band festival or something where it's like a bunch of hippies and the same 5 jam bands that like people will tell you at the show they've seen 90 times or whatever, that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, there's too many people and it feels like you're doing the same thing over and over again, and it doesn't feel good.
It's interesting. Like, I mean, I'm so curious. Like, you actually grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and came into the electronic music through that world. Like, I'm so fascinated. Like,
yeah,
that doesn't seem like the capital of where you would get into this music.
Right, absolutely not. Yeah, it definitely wasn't. I mean, I feel like the music that like I got exposed to from my friends as a kid and through the music scene was actually more like in the like indie rock side of things and like jam bands and bluegrass and punk music and stuff like that. But I personally like I played in bands, so that was how I knew that other music. But if I was at home, all I listened to was like Aphex Twin and drum and bass and stuff like that. And I found it on the internet, but like that was always like for me that was all I really cared about. The other stuff was like I'm doing this because like all of the other kids think it's cool, I guess. And I did end up liking some of it. Some of it I found like that like things like Animal Collective and stuff like I got really into, but it was like it was still like for me electronic.
Yeah, they're like way more on the experimental side.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I yeah, that's probably true. I didn't think about that, but yeah.
Did you play? You actually played an instrument? What did you actually play? What was that like?
I played drums was like my main thing, and I was pretty serious about it. I was playing in like jazz and stuff like that, and I also like learned to play guitar and bass and stuff for different bands. Like so, whatever kind of band that like needed somebody, I would try to join. I got grounded a lot. I had pretty strict parents, but I
Yeah.
was also like,
Did they want you to be a musician?
no, no,
Ooh.
definitely not. They wanted me to be a doctor or something. So I yeah, I would join these bands and play in them for like a month and then get grounded. So I ended up like most of the music I made in high school was actually recorded and just I multi-tracked at my house and like played, did electronic stuff that wasn't with other people. So that was the basis for me doing this now, I think.
Did your friends know what you were up to when you were starting to kind of play with this? Like you were playing like music, but did they know you were also kind of mixing and doing stuff in your bedroom?
I don't know. I think some of them did. Like, I think I would sometimes burn CDs and then bring them to school and show them. But, like, it was
Mm-hmm.
pretty personal. Like, it wasn't something that, like, I didn't try to play shows with it. It was just what I did to blow off steam almost. So, like, I was just, yeah, making the stuff. I don't know if they liked it. Like, I think I would show them these, like, it would always be like things where I would take tapes and multi-track on tapes and then put that into the computer and then mess with it in the computer and add like whatever way I could manipulate the audio, and it was like really like non-musical and abstract and kind of abrasive, so I don't know if anyone really liked it. Yeah.
I mean, they had to have said something. Like you had some friends that probably liked it. Hey, you got any more? Like, did you actually start like getting like folks that were kind of into it when in high school, like your friends?
I well, so I had people like on MySpace who like followed I put it on
MySpace.
MySpace. Yeah,
Yes.
I was kind of dating myself, but yeah, I put it on MySpace, and I had like random people like who I didn't know on MySpace send me messages, and we would like trade music on there. So not really like my actual friends. That wasn't like they all thought it was weird, but on MySpace there were people who liked it. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, that kind of is like the burgeoning of kind of like, okay, there's somebody is going to listen to. I mean, you have ideas, right? You're like trying to like put them out there. Having somebody give you some feedback is kind of crucial in like, doing more, right? A lot of times.
I think so, yeah, especially for music. Like I think realistically like that the lack of feedback at that time is why it took me so long to get serious about it. Like that was over 10 years before I ever released a record. Like
Wow.
this was all like I assumed no one would ever hear this stuff. It was like I thought I actually had this big plan that like I would have a hard drive full of music, and then when I died someone would find it. That was what I
I
thought like
love
would be
it.
like the end result of of all of
Of
that
all
work.
this hours and hours and hours. So you were like, this was like back in 2008 or something? Like you
Yeah,
were,
before yeah, it started in like 2004 or something was when I like in 3
wow.
when I started doing this, and then it just continued, and it didn't turn into like me wanting to make dance music for other people until about 2013 or something, or 2012 when I started DJing, and then
Wow.
it became more concrete, and yeah, I had a direction.
So you were just like in your early 20s then, right? Like,
Yeah.
and were you still in Knoxville? Was that still in Knoxville?
Yeah, like well, it started out in Knoxville. I was in high school, and then I went to college in Pittsburgh, and then I came back to Knoxville after that. And so yeah, when I came back to Knoxville after college, that was when I joined the collective that was throwing techno parties, and that was when I started DJing.
And where did you go to college at? Where did,
University of Pittsburgh.
for what? What did you go for?
Physics and math.
I love it. I'm an electrical engineer too, who's a
Okay, sick.
musician, So, and I actually had a day job forever because my hobby, was definitely taking chances, trying new things, and it took a long while for my, like our world to kind of gain traction. So I get it.
Yeah, you have to. It's actually like if having a day job allows you to like kind of spend a lot of time doing really dumb stuff like instead of like with music instead of having to take it seriously or like do something you hate in order to like make money. I mean, and even like if you are trying to do that, like it's so hard and such a crapshoot to ever make any money like doing music that it's probably a good idea to try to get a
It's a
job.
good idea. I
Yeah.
mean, are you interested in physics and math, or was that just something you thought, I gotta do something?
I was interested in it. I wasn't good at it. Like I got really bad grades in college. But I thought it was like the coolest thing. And I thought like it would be like something that I could like I wouldn't hate, I guess. Like I
Hmm.
think that was like I think a big part of like doing college and getting an education is finding the thing that you hate the least that you can get paid for.
Exactly. Yeah, because I mean, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's people in the universe that just know what they want to do, but I felt like I was definitely going through the motions on something that hated the least, and did not know how it was going to play out at all. And I totally get that. I mean, I was like smart kid, so I had to like, oh, you're gonna go into engineering. I don't know how many times I even thought about it.
Okay,
It was
yeah.
weird.
No, that make especially with engineering, it's like you know that you're going to be able to get a job when you get the engineering degree. And so that's like it makes perfect sense. You're spending all this money to do a thing where you can get the job afterwards and yeah, it's a reasonable thing to do.
I always was taking art and video. I just had my head was definitely in the clouds and wanting to create more, and I didn't know how I was going to be able to do it. And I would still say I'm kind of still figuring that out. But I mean, it's cool that you were you playing in Pittsburgh, or was it just kind of on pause when you were there?
I had a band that like we played some shows like
Wait, you were in a live band.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
What you were you doing DJ? Were you like making music, electronic music too?
I was. And I was like going to like Pittsburgh had a really great rave scene. So like I would just like go to raves on my own a lot. That was like what I did for fun. And I made dance music too, like on my own. Yeah.
Did you break in there? Did you have to play a party when you were there?
No, I was afraid to even talk to anyone at those things. Like I
Really?
was like, oh, these DJ people are so cool and like weird, and I don't know where they come from or how they do this. I didn't fully even get how DJing worked. I knew how production
Really?
worked, but it was just like I just liked going and listening to the music.
That's so interesting. So like tell me, how do you bridge so like how would you describe the difference, and how did you bridge the difference?
So like initially, like I starting from the beginning, like the first time I ever saw a DJ play was this drum and bass DJ called Diesel Boy, and I
Hmm.
was in high school still, and I thought like he played vinyl at that time, I think, and I thought that like when he was on stage, he was taking like old disco records or something and scratching them so hard live that it turned into drum and bass, and that's
Hmm.
wrong. That's not how it works. He's just playing records that are that you're playing one record and then playing another record.
Right.
it's not that complicated. But yeah, I think when I moved back to Tennessee, actually, or maybe sometime like no, I think that was when it was when I moved back to Tennessee. This group of people were like I was looking for raves in town, and there was a group of other people who were throwing these tiny little techno parties. You'd go and there would be like 20 people or something. And I started going, and they were like, "Well, you come to these things all the time and seem to really like it. You should start DJing." And that was when I started.
And was that Birdhouse? Was it at the place called Birdhouse?
Yes, it was. Yeah, yeah. And that was this little like anarchist like space where the like community center run by local activists. Yeah.
Was it like a house, an old house? What was it?
Yes. Yeah, it's an old house. It's an old house like in this neighborhood called Fourth and Gill. And it's like at first like it was they let us go all night, so our parties would like end at 7 in the morning, which was really sick. And yeah, it was just this old kind of rundown house. And one of the guys who runs the party had like he has a background in throwing like psytrance parties. Like he
Mm-hmm.
threw them in the 2000s, and so he knew how to like work with sound systems. So he brought a sound system, and we would set it up. We would put like camo netting all over the walls and change all the lights out to where it was red, and
Oh,
we like
nice.
turned that house into like a little rave every month. Yeah.
And just go till dawn, which is
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's so awesome. And is that where you feel like you started cutting your teeth? Because I mean, like, is that like playing as a DJ?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That was where like it was I feel like I got this like education because like I would play there every month and also play other like local gigs, and we also like we would book kind of like American techno DJs. So like
Mm-hmm.
how the way techno was at that time, especially like the underground stuff, these were DJs who would like probably outside of the US would go be playing in Berlin and the UK and stuff and all these cool like underground clubs over there, but here they like wouldn't get booked anywhere because nobody liked that kind of music, especially like in like outside of New York and LA. So we would
Wow.
get these artists who like were,
Amazing artist then.
yeah, really good, and some of them like pretty legendary, to like come play our little like basically like techno keg party. Yeah, it
For
was
like
great.
20 people.
Yeah, well, they by by 2 or 3 years in, we were getting like 150 people, so they got pretty big for the size of
For
town.
Knoxville.
Yeah, for Knoxville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And you know what's so interesting is like I wouldn't say when I see you and I see a lot, when people would describe your music as you as a live performer, you're hardly just mixing records. You're, vinyl. Because you don't there is so much going on. Like, can you talk about like what are you doing up there? Like how did that grow for you? Like from where you were then to now, like how did you learn to kind of create live? And as it because that's what I think of you as a DJ is you really are creating, not you're not just like spinning.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can see what you're saying. Like where the difference being like instead of playing one record at a time and just mixing
Yeah.
the tails into each other, like finding
Yeah.
ways to play three or four at a time and having the vocals like make sense with each other and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, like I think it's like that almost happened naturally. Like I have a really short attention span and I cannot stand on stage and like let a record play and do nothing. So like it was like, oh, how can I like spice this up? I'm gonna add another one. And it was also like that and a combination of watching like especially like Midwestern American DJs. There's this style of techno DJing that like there's this DJ called Non-Compliant who is like a good
Mm.
example. She's from Indiana, and she used to go by DJ Shiva, and she plays like really hard techno.
Wow.
But the way they mix it is like they're always jacking the faders up and down and like have three or four records playing at a time and like are it is with techno, so you won't hear it, it's very subtle, but they'll like be kind of it's this very active like almost sloppy way of mixing where the records will even come out and won't be perfectly synced, and it just sounds aggressive and distorted. And I wanted to do that, but like add maybe do that and add like trap records in there and have everything feel like grimy and aggressive and kind of like rock and roll, but like also modern and electronic, I guess, at the same time somehow. And so I try to make my mixing as active and like ADD as possible, I guess.
And I mean, a lot of the things that you're mixing, and those are mostly your original productions too, right? Like I mean, how much do you leverage from other folks versus what you create?
I think it's about half and half. Like, so I think like my favorite DJs usually don't even have produce. I think they'll just be DJs. Because I think there's like it's like an art itself. But I really like doing both and finding ways to like use other people's records to contextualize mine, and even finding ways to play like completely inappropriate records that shouldn't be like mixed in a dance set or whatever, and
Yes.
mix them in, I guess, with mine. Yeah.
And so you kind of like, one thing I read is like, kind of you're in Knoxville, and you decided. So was it like after a while you decided to move to Atlanta? Is that where you met Mike Banks? Is that or was that in Atlanta?
Oh no, the Mike Banks meeting was actually like right when I had moved to Knoxville. There was this music festival in Detroit, and it was like it's called Movement, and it's a techno, like very like American techno festival. And Mike Banks is, yeah, one of the members of Underground Resistance, and
Yes.
I only met him that one day. Like it was like I went to this store called Submerged, which is a record store that he was at, and run by like someone who's adjacent to Underground Resistance. And he kind of like showed me, we were me and what my friend Ted, and my girlfriend were the only three people in the store. And so he just like took us around and showed us like for like a day or something. It was a really long time. He gave us a whole rundown of the history of Detroit techno and what it all means.
Which is so kind of primary to the scene.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it also is such a it's the history of it is so different than like what you see now of what techno has become, where it's this like kind of, when people who aren't into dance music like think about techno, they think of like horrible like bottle service clubs or like the
Or like
worst.
EDC.
Yeah, or EDC. Yeah, like it's one of those things. And like techno isn't, it's a punk thing in my mind. Like
Mm.
the Underground Resistance, like even the music is grimy. It's like it's not clean. It was created for like sweaty, like kind of sketchy clubs. It's like, and it had this kind of like, it had a meaning. It was a very political music for them, like
Yeah.
for so it
In
was
what way
like,
would you say?
so I think for Underground Resistance, it was like, it was primarily black music for black parties, and it was
Hmm.
like a response. I guess Mike was telling me it was a big response to like a lot of the social problems that were happening in Detroit, and he saw it as a way out for them, like for that was like, I mean, kind of in a similar way hip hop was, and it was
Hmm.
like this was all happening around the same time as like as hip hop was evolving too. So I guess like I'm not like articulating it too well, but like I think I mean, it was at that time, it was like very much related to like the life of an African American person in Detroit.
Well,
And now like I think like raving and like dance music in general is like the underground side of it is still very like leftist and like kind of forward thinking. It's always like all of the, most of the best parties are queer parties and
hmm.
are parties that are like made to be like spaces for outsiders and all of this stuff.
Safe
Um,
spaces too, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely, very much so.
That's pretty wild. I mean, is there kind of like a pop? Would you say there's a difference between the underground and like maybe the pop underground? Is there a
Yeah.
is there still kind of a two-tier system there?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think it's like it is now. It's very much a spectrum. Like it, I think, because of the way social media works and stuff. Like I think in every scene, those lines have completely just been erased. Like, I don't think anyone knows what underground means anymore and what pop means anymore. It doesn't. I feel like that all went away in the last like 10 or 15 years, and now we don't really know. But like, in my mind, the real underground stuff is like the not even real, but like one of the main like definitions, like you were saying at the beginning of this podcast, is related to whether or not your party or whatever is has been co-opted by one of the two like companies that does this stuff in the United States. Like, are you doing,
That's
are you doing it on your
yes.
own? Or is it like that stuff is pretty important to whether or not it's like it has any meaning, in that way.
It's true. And it's hard. Like it's kind of hard to kind of go outside of that system and like even, people a lot of people just give up because it's just like can't make a living if you go outside the system.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and those, even though like those companies have weird like ticketing practices and stuff where like there are things that they do where like even if a show like doesn't sell well, like because of the way Ticketmaster works or whatever, like
Hmm.
the company that owns it will still make money because they own
Tons of money.
both the promotion company and the ticketing person,
Hmm.
and the local promoter who is trying to make all of that happen will lose a lot of money because they've paid for all these services. And so like I don't
Got
even
it.
think it behooves locals to work with those people. But I don't know, I shouldn't say this on a public podcast because now
It's
I'm not going to
okay.
get
No,
booked
no,
anymore.
we're an underground podcast. We're an underground podcast. And you know what? If you're popular, they don't care. They'll like even if they'll people just want to make money. So it's like
That's true.
it's like trying to you're gonna everybody's gonna navigate this whether you're into going to concerts or putting on concerts and having I think it behooves the entire scene to be pushed forward by people that are trying to like do things differently, right? Trying to kind of make it feel like art or culture than just trying
Yeah.
to just do it the some formula. What's interesting kind of in Detroit too, I just curious, like just side is there still a techno scene there? Would you? I know some artists like Eris Drew. I don't know if you know
Yeah, yeah, of course.
incredible.
Yeah.
Has techno kind of spread out all over the country, or is this still kind of in? Is there still kind of a nucleus of places where it started and it's still kind of being pushed forward? Like, how would you?
I mean, I think like there are definitely a lot of people in Detroit who are still making techno and who are doing it like from that original strain of people. Like, like, oh, there's this guy called like Moody Man. He's not techno, but it's
Mm-hmm.
house, but it's the
Yes,
same. Like
incredible.
Moody Man is still there, like Omar S is still there. There's a lot of people who are there, and like Minx is there. There's a ton of good DJs and producers there. But like realistically, those people make all their money like in Europe and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're that's I mean that's how a lot of the like really good local scenes are like in the States. I mean, a lot of New York DJs who start to make it like they'll only start be playing in New York once a year, after a certain point when they start like when it becomes their job basically.
Right.
So the local scenes like are I don't know what it is, but like you're capped in size. So like
Mm-hmm.
after you hit
Mm-hmm.
a certain size, you can no longer be a part of the local scene. Um,
Interesting. You're gonna be
yeah.
playing the big festivals, some on Europe or wherever.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah,
be
exactly. And well, in Europe, like you can kind of make a living like without ever
really.
playing bigger shows because I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot more small venues and there's just a lot more. The cost of living is less if you live there. You don't have to worry about health insurance. which is like a big reason people will quit DJing. I think like or quit being a musician, right? Like that's
Yeah.
I know a ton of musicians who like I know for a fact the reason they're no longer doing music is because they need healthcare. I think. I
Yes,
don't
or
know.
they need to eat. One of the
Yeah.
two.
Yeah,
One of the
exactly.
two.
So that's that stuff. I mean, I think this is also probably somehow tied in and related to like the fact that there are not really like local music venues in every city anymore. And it's much
So sad.
harder to be like a touring band the same way it was possible in the 2000s.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of it has to go back to kind of the fact that most of them have been bought up, or the ecosystem now doesn't allow them to succeed. I mean, we're kind of Oregon, Portland is the only major market where that's where it's independent still. Totally, 100%.
Oh, I mean, and that is must be on purpose. Like you guys had to fight for that, I'm sure.
We're still fighting for it, and the it's tough because the folks that have the money come in with sweeping proposals that will transform neighborhoods, right? And they're basically the big money machine that they're trying to create. Like there's markets like Denver, which is not independent at all and
Yeah.
kind of owned by one company. They have a cash machine because they can go from small to large, and there's a formula there in terms of like having that 3,500 person indoor at the top.
Yep.
You
There's
just
a pipeline in that city that I've heard
pipeline.
about for a lot of artists. Yeah.
And it may work for artists, but it really works for that company. And there's no way anybody else is going to get a foothold there. There's no room, and they can in every way they're making money even when they fail, as you said. It's
Yeah.
alcohol or tickets or merch or the deal over 6 shows because it's a package shit.
Yeah.
It's really really hard to be independent. And it was cool during COVID. I'm so curious like how COVID affected you too, but COVID for venues was kind of defining moment for independent venues. We at first it was just game over, and then NEVA came along, National Independent Venues Association, and
Yeah.
lots of awesome independent venues from all over the country. I'm sure there was Knoxville too. I don't know who was there, but it was amazing. And all of a sudden, people rose up all over saying, "Yeah, I want my local venues. Because I think people do want this. Like if you throw it out there, it was I believe the one of the most successful letter writing campaigns of the entire kind of COVID period to Congress was
Yeah.
people trying to say support independent venues, which ended up kind of working. You know what I mean? It could have
Yeah.
been devastating how many of them shut down during COVID because they didn't have those big company finances to sit it out, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it did work. I think there's a local venue in Knoxville called the Pilot Light, which is like
Ooh,
one
yeah.
that I grew up going to, and it was like it has played a huge part in like that local scene. And it managed to survive the pandemic, which I was like, I'm really happy about that they're still going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it says to me that given the chance to, people do want things that are local, that are bringing new things, have a voice, and it's not just the same stuff that's going everywhere else, right? Because you got
Yeah.
to have a local scene, you need to have local venues to
Yeah.
have it to create art. You need outlets to show them. It's
Yeah.
just you can't have not have the ecosystem to kind of to change things to make an impact. And I'm gonna imagine that you moved. So when you moved from Knoxville to Atlanta, what was the thinking there? What was your choice?
I literally got a job in Atlanta. That was why I moved. It was like it was not
It
I
was
did
like
want
eating and healthcare.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was like I moved actually during the pandemic and
After school.
yeah, like it was Yeah, I mean, that was basically it. Like the job I was working in ended, and then I needed to get a new job, and that was where I got hired.
Was it a physics math job?
Yeah, it was related. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
it was
pretty
like a
awesome,
radar
actually.
engineering job. It was,
Really? That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it was boring. Like it was, I couldn't have lasted very long. I lasted about six
Uh,
months before I quit. It was really hard,
but it
for
got you
me.
to Atlanta.
Yeah, yeah, it got me here. It got me through the pandemic, and then
Hmm.
by the end of the pandemic, like, that was when I started getting enough bookings to kind of leave that job. I think by like 2022, I was a full-time musician. Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, and Atlanta is completely its own animal in terms of like, I guess as a dance scene, I'm guessing too, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's very much so actually because like it has a thriving dance music scene, but like it's not necessarily like a destination for all of the international DJs or anything. So it is a very
Interesting.
local scene and has its own sound. It's like there's even a type of like club music. They like, you know how there's Jersey Club and Philly Club and Baltimore
Mm-hmm.
Club. Like
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta now has Atlanta Club, and there's like a crew that's kind of started these. They started a while back, but like they've created their own sound with these like black queer parties. It's called Morph, and it's really
Wow.
like unique. They have their own sound, and they're doing like it's very special. And yeah, they've created their own genre of music basically for those parties.
Do you get in on some of those parties to, or,
I played one, and I've gone and like we used to book some of the DJs, or I think one of the DJs we booked for our party in Tennessee, before like when I was still doing that. So and I play their tracks a lot, but like I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a part of that scene. I don't want to like claim any of it because it's their thing. Um,
you're just a guest?
yeah, I'm a guest, and I really like them. Yeah,
That's cool. I mean, there's so much kind of original American music, especially on the rap side, coming from Atlanta.
yeah, for
Does
sure.
that, do they ever cross pollinate at all? And is there kind of like a just influences that kind of go between all the kind of original music being
I
made in
think
Atlanta?
there's influences for sure. I mean, Atlanta is like basically like the blackest city in the US right now, I
Mm-hmm.
think. And it's like it is where hip hop lives right now for the most part.
Yeah.
And like that shows itself also in the dance music scene and in the type of dance music that's popular and the way people are at parties and even the makeup of parties. Like even at any like dance music event, like the crowd is going to be way more mixed and way more
More
diverse than it would be
diverse.
in any other city, that at least any city that I've been to in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can totally imagine. What is the I can like how do you go about being an artist? Like I noticed that most of the stuff you're doing is like a couple songs, right? Like here,
Yeah.
and if I look at it, you've done a whole bunch of imprints and labels. You've worked with a lot of different people, right?
Yeah.
From like Gobstopper Records to like labels like Dirty Bird. Is that like a part of like a choice? Is that something like is this like a master plan? Is it a bunch of happy accidents or like how?
So like the how like with dance music, like it doesn't like, you've noticed I've never released an album, I guess, and dance music
Yeah.
doesn't like even make sense as an album in my opinion. Like club,
Mm-hmm.
like dance floor dance music, like nobody wants a techno record. I mean, like Daft Punk has albums and stuff, but like for the most part, like dance music exists in singles and EPs and just like records. Like the original format was a vinyl 12-inch with like 2 to 4 tracks on it. And like that, when I first started making dance music, all I wanted was to have something on vinyl that a DJ would play and then
Mm-hmm.
have it be in a used bin at some point. Like find that record and have it not be too descriptive, like not even necessarily have my name on it, but just be something in a used bin that people find. And
I love it.
so the way like and you want it on a label you like, and all the different labels have different like aesthetic choices they make, or genres or whatever. So like I like just like working with labels that like with, you know, whatever type of label that if I like their music, I'm happy to release with them and do like a 12-inch or whatever, like. And but it wasn't a part of any type of plan. It was more me getting excited that the label wanted to put out a track, and uh, giving them
Meeting
some music.
people and just kind of like next thing into next. How different does your recorded versions versus your live versions, are they very different?
They're identical, like, because when you play live, when you're DJing, you're just like playing tracks. You are like just playing tracks, but you're playing other tracks on top of them. So like when I'm
Hmm.
DJing, I like, if it's my own track, you'll probably hear that track, and you'll hear a couple of other like tracks played at the same time, kind of beat matched. So it is just the same files. Like
But I
there's
mean,
no.
are you messing with it in a different way by doing that every time? Do you like to kind of always play them the same way? Or are you just kind of, how much do you read the room and kind of change things?
Oh yeah, always. Yeah, it's like always different. I mean, usually like how, you know, you look at the room and you decide what you want to put on next, and what, like, you know, depending on, and even how, like, how you want to layer them. And you know, you have the EQs and stuff on the DJ mixer, so like I can play like a track from me, and then cut out the mid range and put in like an acapella from some rap song or something like that, and have that playing, and then, you know, have another bit of like a techno record where I've EQ'd everything out except for the hi-hats, and so it'll sound kind of different.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I noticed. It felt very live, like and what I really appreciated kind of seeing you is that you were reading the room. Like it wasn't a static thing. I think, our kind of like adventure with kind of electronic music is just kind of getting started, because it takes a long time for us to kind of get respected in a scene.
Yeah.
Like a long time ago, we were mixing music from the start, but just different music scenes. The word of mouth is important in our world. Like some respected artist tells other artists, "Oh, I had this amazing time," and that opens the floodgates. Whether it's like, jazz or psych rock or metal or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's always kind of been the same thing for us. Having Quantic last year too was really
Oh,
pretty
sick.
awesome. He's an amazing, like reading the room, just absolute destroying places live.
Yeah, he's a legend. Yeah.
He's a legend. I mean, yeah, and it was just cool to see, because so much of his music he's actually producing, right? And before he brings it, like that's a lot of that is live music that he made, that he brings and then mixes and does live, in a DJ setting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes
It's cool.
sense. Yeah, I mean, I think like, so, you know, there is like also like live electronic music that people do where they bring out drum machines and synthesizers and stuff, and then play them, like have them in sequencers and do that live. And intuitively, like you would think that like that's gonna have a bigger impact at a show or something than a DJ set. But for the most part, unless someone is like a full savant, there are people who can do it. Those live sets are going to be really boring compared to a DJ set, because like electronic music is really mixed down dependent, and like the, you know, it's all waveforms, and everything is pretty
Hmm.
like, to get a really solid sound to come out of a speaker, like that kind of stuff matters. And then you can't be as spontaneous with a synthesizer and a sequencer. You're actually limited by the sounds that you've brought physically, and by like
Hmm.
what the computer can do. But there's something really intuitive about like the whole setup of like of turntables and a mixer, where if you get good at it, you can turn that into an instrument that you can kind of like, you can play the sound system. It feels like you're playing a sound system rather than you're playing an instrument, I guess.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's when it becomes like I feel way more confident that I can create something dynamic and engaging with four CDJs and a mixer than I could with a synthesizer and a drum machine, I think.
I totally get it. I mean, and there's just so many approaches too. Like another amazing, we've kind of elevated the idea of DJ, and we tend to be kind of, we're pretty broad with that, but that's we put them between all the music performances. So
Yeah.
like kind of like every single stage, any place you are, it's either a live performance or there's a DJ. And the theory being there is like you don't know why you're having a good time still, right? Like so the magic of a DJ is like they're just like making you happy. And sometimes it's explicit, you're like dancing into it, and sometimes it's in your brain and you don't know, you're not even thinking about it, right? Because they're just carrying that moment, and we always talk about that, and it's like so many wildly different styles. Another just incredible, just more straight DJ. I don't know if he produces much, but do you know Chances with Wolves?
Oh yeah. Well, you actually told me about them right after I played at the festival, and then I looked them up afterwards. So
He's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
And like he's digging out like really wild old stuff, right? And it's just like but live, like absolutely owns you. That's all the only way I can say it. It's like
yeah.
it's this a euphoric. It's he's just such intuition, execution, just the feeling. It's like it's so original and it's just so captivating, and it's really cool to see. And yeah, I mean it's wild because I'm guessing like for you, like I noticed that you also kind of started your own record label. What was the thinking behind that?
It was like I had a bunch of music I wanted to release, but it was like it didn't fit on any existing record labels, basically, and no one really wanted it. So, and it was also my favorite music that I had ever made at that time. So
And
I
Goes to
was like,
Infinity, right? That's the
yeah,
label.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
And is that some of the music that because one thing I know, how we found you, and this is where we do crossover with pop culture, is you were very loved in this year.
Oh
you
yeah.
got you got on the top 30 list of artists for Pitchfork, right?
Yeah.
And they kept loving your stuff. Was that actually on your own imprint there?
No, I think that was maybe some of it was, but I think like the ones that like the first Pitchfork review I got was on a label called Astrophonica, which is like a British, I think from London-based drum and bass centric label, but a little more. It's like way more experimental than most drum and bass labels. But yeah, that was the first label. And since then, it's been, I can't remember all the different labels, but a variety of them that they've reviewed. Yeah.
I mean, that helped, right? I mean, like it's weird to get picked and chosen. Maybe there's other folks you feel are great too, but it does
Yeah.
help.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it's really like exciting to me that like people from outside of like the full purist dance music world even listen to my music. Like I was like, that's, I don't know, because dance music is so insular. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people within the world of dance music literally won't even know like any of anyone else, any other type of music or bands or anything. They just won't know about it.
Hmm.
And this probably the same way for people outside of it. So like that feels suffocating musically sometimes, and you feel like you don't have any like even like respect or something as a musician. I'm like, oh, I'm just like a lowly DJ making this like fake music for raves, and I like when other people like it too. It feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. It had like, I mean, it had a pop culture moment. Like it always is, love it or hate it. I'm not such against Pitchfork because they're, I'm not against any creative kind of curator because there's always good ideas in all of it. I find cool stuff like you when I wouldn't have found, because my curating kind of like networks of friends and people who love music, we're always trying to broaden it. It's always coming from weird places, the stuff that is like the essence of a music scene. But
Yeah.
sometimes it does come from like when pop culture sometimes is colliding with EDM, off and on. But yours it was a pretty wild version of of electronic music to kind of get picked on that in that world. I thought it's cool.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, usually the stuff that like crosses over to the rock world will be like artists like Tycho or something, or like,
Yes.
stuff that
Or
has
or like
more.
Fortnite, Marshmallow.
Yeah, or that stuff. Yeah, I mean full EDM,
or Tycho, guys, like more semi live. What's their name? Caribou. What's the guy's name?
yeah,
Yeah,
Caribou, yeah, Daft or Dan Snaith, yeah,
because he's incredible DJ too. Like,
oh
but
yeah, amazing,
it's amazing to see a kind of like semi live version of it too.
yeah.
He picked some of your music, like, or uses some of your tracks, right? He features them. I've seen him on Spotify, like ID.
Yeah. I think he's played some of them out before at parties. He's DJ'd with them and stuff. Like yeah, he has been supported. I mean, the other person who was like really instrumental in like getting my music heard by anyone was Fortet. I think
Oh
like
wow.
at the maybe 2019, right before the
Hmm.
pandemic started. I think I saw Fortet share one of my tracks or tweet it or
Was that
something like that.
Maria? Like
Um,
Mariah?
oh yeah, that was the track. Yeah, Mariah. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And that was like I still was working and stuff, and was like uh one of the first times where I felt like I could that this was bigger than like a hobby, I guess, because before that it felt like, okay, I'm just gonna be like releasing these tracks into the void and some
Yep.
DJs will play it, and that's as far as it'll go.
That's as far as it'll
um
go.
yeah.
Totally. It's interesting. So, like, I mean, how often, do you really kind of get mixed into festivals like like Pickathon? Like, do you actually play like full festivals that are not EDM? Do you get a chance to do that very often?
I don't think so. I mean, Pickathon was really the one, like for the most, like, I don't think it's ever happened other than that. And I was so excited. Like, I cannot tell you how excited I was to be like on that like flyer. I was like, I think I'm the only DJ on this flyer. Like, this is the coolest thing. Like, and I also knew I was going to actually have a lot of fun at the festival, because like, it's not going to be DJs who I've seen 20 times or something, or like, I have to subject my head to like another 4 hours of kick drums. Like, it's gonna be something else. And yeah,
What
I
was
was
it like
happy.
for you?
I had fun. I mean, man, like I just like walked around and listen. I don't participate in festivals that I go to. Like,
Hmm.
I used to, but I don't like. I just go there and then like we'll hang out in the artist area or whatever before I play, and then go find something to eat or something. But at this one, I just like enjoyed it. Like, I walked around and listened to music the whole time, and heard bands that like, that I never have heard of before. And even yeah, I went at it with a really open mind and just like actually had fun.
Anything speak to you that you didn't expect, or?
Yeah, like I had never heard Gel before,
Hmm. Oh my
which
god.
was like this hardcore band,
Yeah.
and they were like sick, like so good and aggressive, and like the energy was there. It was like that. I still listen to Gel now. Like, after
That's
that, I became a fan, like a full fan. Yeah, I like them.
which is kind of owed to there's a pretty good punk scene in Knoxville too, right? Like,
Yeah, there was when I was growing up,
yeah,
definitely, and I hope there is still now. Yeah.
I don't know, but that's cool. I think I saw you both times. Like, it was funny to see you kind of the first time in the Grove. Like, it started pulling in people, and all of a sudden it was like this huge mass of folks out there, and they totally loved it. You could totally, like, people, that's the kind of thing when you're just kind of like calling it music.
Yeah.
And if it's, if people are bringing it, I just feels to me, like, I think you completely made a humongous leap of new people that kind of got introduced to your music. And then the one that will always stick with me was you played the last show in the Galaxy Barn on Sunday night.
Yeah.
and it was packed with like teenagers and young adults. Like it was so packed, and I don't think any of them had ever seen you or thought like their dads were cool enough or that moms and dads were cool enough to have like a festival of music they would like. But it was so cool. Like it just no way that was never, if we could have gone till morning, we totally would have.
Yeah.
It was so great. I don't know. Was that fun for you, that set?
Yes, and honestly, both were like the beginning. Like I got there, and there was like a part of me that I was like, I legitimately don't know how this is gonna go. Like because like it felt, I was like, even just the fact that they were setting up a DJ table on the stage, I was
Yes.
like, this is gonna be like this. This is like a band stage, and there's just, I hope everyone doesn't just leave, but people were there, and then the way people received that first set, I was like, it was better than at a lot of EDM festivals that I played. Like I played ones where like my music in the map of music genres or whatever is technically closer or something to those, but like those stages, like I won't get a response because my music is too weird or something for them.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't have enough wobbles or something. But like this stage, it was like perfect. Everyone just started dancing. No one had any like maybe preconceived notions of what it was supposed to be or something. They just like liked the rhythm and stuff. And yeah, same the last stage, the last day I kind of like, I had been hanging out at the festival for a couple of days then, and like felt like I had a better idea of what was going on, so I took like more risks and made it a little weirder and more aggressive, and it was fine. Like it went as good as it could have gone, I think. And getting to play longer was great too. I don't know if that was allowed, but like,
oh yeah, it was. We were like, we wanted to push it, in a perfect world, we just shut that door and like, yeah, we'd go till dawn. Like that's really what it should have done. And but I mean, we went later, and just closing the whole thing down, like with that really kind of was on purpose. Like that was the last thing.
Okay.
That was the last of Pickathon. And I remember there was a lot of skeptics on some of our, people, because there's always a thing with Pickathon. I'm sure it's the same in your music, where they think they know your music, and they're like, they would never do this. Like there's this bunch, there's lines, right? And I kind of picture you as not having kind of like a line that you're not like by definition won't cross. Like that's doesn't, or things you wouldn't do, because it's like for us, it's just like, that just seems so limiting, right? Like how would you ever take a risk if you have these lines?
Yeah, that's like crusty behavior. Like that's what happens in like, like, I mean, you've been in music scenes your whole life, like in local music scenes, there's always some like old, like crusty gatekeeper guys who like hate everything except for like this one very specific thing that you do. And the reason that they're not happy is because they hate everything and they're not willing to like cross. And I think if you're not pissing someone off with what you're doing, especially those people, if you're not pissing those people off with what you're doing, it's like you're not gonna like, it's not new. You need to like make those people just as mad as you make like people who are more boring, and you have to piss someone from every demographic off. I guess that's what it is.
And what's the best result is that they walk in pissed, but they walk out going respect.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And that's what happened. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like that's really kind of brings us all back around here to this whole idea. Like it's probably a good place to kind of like end this, which is, you're taking risks is the way you kind of like, you're breaking down barriers, trying new things, you're making art, and you're changing things, and I'm super appreciative of what you do, and like I'm a big fan, and I look forward to like you kind of having like getting respect from other folks who don't really think that they would like that, man, because it's super cool.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
It's been really good having you on our show today, and I'm looking forward to just following you for, know what's next.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah. And with that, I'm going to say, hey, everyone, thank you so much. This is the end of episode 23, Pickathon Podcast. We'll be back next week with episode 24. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much, Nikki. Really great.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Pickathon Podcast. This podcast is produced by Zale Schoenborn, Tanner McCullough, and Evan Throckmorton. Our artwork is by Travis Bone, and additional support by Ryan Stiles. The music you heard in this episode was by our guest of honor, Nikki Nair. The songs included were Free Kites, Want to You, Mariah, and the one we're riding out on right now from his latest EP, Set the Roof, in collaboration with Hudson Mohawk, Demura. Be sure to check out our Pickathon Patreon, where we have exclusive interviews, content, and insights into the Pickathon world. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you hear your podcasts. And tell a friend about where they can get on the Pickathon bandwagon. Thank you to the whole Pickathon family. And like Zale said, we'll catch you all next week.